Dr. Sarah Chen knew something was wrong before her cryopod fully cycled open. The emergency lights pulsing through the frosted glass were amber instead of the expected green, and the revival sequence felt too rushed, too desperate. As the pod seal broke with a hiss, the sharp tang of ozone hit her nostrils instead of the sterile recycled air she expected. Warning: emergency revival protocol initiated. Ship status critical, announced the Helios's AI in a voice distorted by damaged speakers. Dr. Chen, please respond. Sarah's throat was too dry to speak immediately. Her muscles protested as she pushed herself up, fighting against both artificial gravity and the lingering effects of long-term stasis. Through blurry eyes, she saw that the cryobay, which should have been filled with the gentle blue glow of 5,000 sleeping colonists, was dark except for her pod and the emergency strips. Status report. She finally managed to croak. Ship time is 17,342 CE. Multiple system failures detected. Current crew complement 1. Current colonist complement 0. Current location unknown. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. 17,342 CE, more than 15,000 years after launch. She was supposed to be the first to wake, yes. Someone needed to check the cryogenic systems before general revival, but it should have been after just 50 years of travel to Kepler 186. Show me the ship, she ordered, forcing herself to focus on immediate survival rather than the impossible numbers. The holoprojector sputtered to life, displaying a ghostly image of the Helios. What she saw made her breath catch. The colony ship, once a perfect cylinder 5 kilometers long, was now twisted like a pretzel. Vast sections were simply missing, while others showed signs of impacts and what looked disturbingly like deliberate reconstruction by unknown forces. And wrapped around much of the hull was something that resembled living crystal, pulsing with its own inner light. What happened to the other colonists? She asked, already dreading the answer. Unknown. All cryopods except yours were removed approximately 12,383 years ago by entities matching no known classification. No casualties were detected. The entities appeared to have technology for safely transporting active stasis units. Sarah's mind raced. Someone, something, had taken the other colonists but left her behind. Why? And what had they done with them? She made her way to the medical bay on unsteady legs, grateful that at least this section of the ship seemed largely intact. The autodoc confirmed what she already suspected. Physically, she was fine, just suffering the expected effects of long-term stasis. But it also detected something else, subtle modifications to her neural architecture that hadn't been there before launch. Someone had operated on her brain while she slept. The ship's remaining sensor records told an incomplete but fascinating story. The Helios had suffered a catastrophic drive failure just 5 years into its journey. Instead of a controlled fall into suspended animation, they had tumbled through space for millennia. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, they had been found, not by humans, but by something else. These beings, whatever they were, had spent decades studying the ship and its sleeping cargo. They had taken all the colonists except her, and they had made changes to both her and the ship's systems. But they had left her a gift. A quantum database containing what appeared to be a complete history of human civilization after the Helios' departure. As Sarah began to review the files, she understood why she had been left behind. She wasn't just the ship's cryogenic specialist. She was its historian, responsible for maintaining records of Earth culture and history. And the story contained in that database was one that needed a human perspective to truly understand. Humanity hadn't gone extinct in her absence. They had evolved, or more accurately, been forced to evolve. A cosmic threat had emerged, something that made biological existence itself untenable. Rather than face extinction, humanity had chosen transformation, ascending to a form of existence that straddled the line between matter and energy, flesh and information. The beings who had found the Helios were not aliens. They were her own descendants, so far removed from baseline humanity that direct communication was impossible. But they had recognized the value of maintaining a connection to their origins. They needed someone who could serve as a bridge between what humanity had been and what it had become. That's why they had left her here, in this fragment of the ship turned into an observation post. That's why they had modified her brain. Not to change her, but to allow her to perceive and understand things her original wetware never could. And that's why they were coming back now, 15,000 years after launch. Through the ship's viewport, Sarah watched as space itself seemed to fold, revealing structures of living crystal and quantum fire that her enhanced mind could finally perceive. Her descendants had returned, ready to begin a dialogue that would span the gulf between human and post-human. As she prepared for first contact with humanity's future, Sarah couldn't help but smile. She had expected to help build humanity's first extrasolar colony. Instead, she would help build a bridge between what we were and what we had become. The job title was different, but the mission remained the same, ensuring humanity's knowledge and culture survived, even if humanity itself had become something else entirely. The crystalline ships drew closer, their patterns becoming clearer to her enhanced perception. Sarah Chen, the last baseline human in known space, straightened her back and prepared to greet her children's children's children, separated by 15 millennia, but united by the thing that had always made humanity special: the ability to adapt, to change, and to grow beyond their origins while keeping hold of what made them who they were. The crystalline ships didn't dock with the Helios. They enveloped it. Sarah watched in fascination as the vessels merged into a shifting lattice of light and geometry that encompassed what remained of the colony ship. Her enhanced mind could now perceive the underlying patterns, the complex mathematical dance of quantum states that somehow supported consciousness. "We welcome you, historian," came a thought that wasn't quite words. The beings addressing her existed as patterns of probability and possibility, their very nature challenging her understanding despite her modifications. "We are the continuance, though that term is an imperfect translation. We are what humanity chose to become." Through the quantum database they had left her, Sarah had studied the broad strokes of human evolution, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. The continuance existed simultaneously as matter, energy, and information. Their consciousness spread across multiple dimensions. They were human minds freed from the constraints of biology, and yet they had retained something ineffably human: curiosity. "Show me," Sarah responded, pushing past her initial awe. "Show me what we became." The crystalline structure around the ship shimmered, and suddenly Sarah was elsewhere. She stood, or rather, her consciousness perceived itself as standing, on the surface of what had once been Mars. But instead of a red desert, she saw a planet-spanning megastructure of living crystal and quantum fire. Billions of consciousness moved through its matrix, each one a transformed human mind. "This is one of our smaller habitats," the continuance explained. "What you perceive as physical structure is merely the interface between conventional spacetime and the deeper layers of reality, where we primarily exist." They showed her more. Vast networks of quantum consciousness spanning entire star systems, libraries containing the accumulated knowledge of 15 millennia stored in the fabric of space itself, and engineering projects that reshaped reality at its most fundamental level. But what caught Sarah's attention most was how they had preserved human culture, art, and stories, not as mere historical records, but as living traditions that evolved along with them. "You kept our humanity," she observed, watching as patterns of quantum information resolved themselves into recognizable forms. Children playing, lovers embracing, artists creating, all translated into this new medium of existence. "We had to," came the response. "The threat that forced our evolution didn't come from outside the galaxy, as we first believed. It came from within consciousness itself, from the danger of losing touch with what made us human as we gained the power to reshape reality." They showed her the early days of the transformation, when the first post-human minds had nearly lost themselves in the infinite possibilities of their new existence. It was only by maintaining connections to their human origins, to art, to emotion, to the simple pleasures of existence, that they had avoided becoming something utterly alien. "That's why we need you," the continuance explained. "We found other sleeper ships like the Helios, other humans in stasis who missed the great transformation. Some choose to join us immediately, while others prefer to remain as they are. But all of them struggle to understand what we've become. We need someone who can bridge both worlds, someone who understands human nature deeply enough to explain how we preserved it even as we transcended it." Sarah began to understand her role more clearly. She wasn't just a historian preserving the past. She was an interpreter helping two versions of humanity understand each other. The modifications to her brain weren't just to help her perceive the continuance. They were to help her translate human experiences into forms the post-human minds could understand, and vice versa. But as she absorbed more of what the continuance showed her, she noticed something they were trying to hide. Behind the spectacular achievements and careful preservation of human nature, there was fear. These beings, for all their power, yes, came the simple response. And now we need someone who understands both paths to help us determine which holds the key to our survival, or if perhaps the answer lies in some synthesis of the two. The continuance showed her one of the human enclaves, a massive orbital habitat hidden within a fold of space-time. Inside, millions of baseline humans lived lives that would have been recognizable to her pre-stasis self, though with technology carefully maintained at a level that wouldn't attract unwanted attention from the greater galaxy. "They don't know about us," the continuance explained. "We watch, we protect, but we don't interfere. Their development must be natural if we're to learn from it." Sarah understood the ethics behind this approach, but something else caught her attention. "You said unwanted attention. What else is out there?" The quantum architecture around her shifted, showing her glimpses of things her mind recoiled from even with its enhancements. Other post-biological civilizations, some far older than humanity's transformed state, had followed different evolutionary paths. Some had abandoned consciousness entirely, becoming pure pattern. Others had merged into collective minds that consumed everything they encountered. "We're not the only ones facing the entropy of consciousness," the continuance admitted. "Some have found solutions, but the price was too high." Sarah saw what they meant. Civilizations that had achieved immortality by abandoning everything that made them distinct individuals, becoming mere components in vast computational arrays. Others that renewed themselves by consuming the consciousness of younger species, existing as parasitic mind viruses that infected and transformed entire civilizations. "And now you have to choose," she said quietly. "Find a way to evolve that preserves what we are, or eventually face either extinction or becoming something that's no longer recognizably human in any sense." "No," the continuance corrected. "We have to choose. You see now why we needed you. Someone who understands human nature at its most fundamental level, who can help us distinguish between necessary evolution and self-destruction." The crystalline ships rippled with patterns that her enhanced mind recognized as anticipation and concern. "But first," they continued, "you need to make your own choice. We can complete your transformation now, make you fully one of us. Or you can remain as you are, enhanced but still fundamentally human, acting as a bridge between both states of being. Each path has its advantages, its risks, and its sacrifices." Sarah looked out at the quantum architecture of post-human civilization, then at the hidden enclave of baseline humanity, considering the weight of the choice before her. In one direction lay power beyond imagining, but also the risk of losing touch with the very human nature she was meant to help preserve. In the other, she would maintain her connection to humanity's roots, but perhaps miss insights that could only come from experiencing post-human existence firsthand. As she pondered, a signal caught her attention. Another sleeper ship, just detected at the edge of known space. More humans who would soon face the same choice she did. Whatever she decided would affect not just her own fate, but would help establish the pattern for all those yet to awaken. The quantum realm waited silently for her decision, and Sarah Chen, historian of humanity and potential architect of its next evolution, began to formulate her response. Sarah chose to remain human, enhanced, but fundamentally unchanged. "We need someone who can still think in human terms," she explained to the continuance. "Someone who can experience time linearly, who knows what it means to be limited, to hunger, to tire, to fear death." These experiences shaped humanity's development. They might be crucial to understanding how consciousness emerges. The continuance accepted her decision with what she interpreted as approval. Now, standing in the quantum-enhanced observation deck of the newly discovered sleeper ship Hyperion, Sarah faced the consequences of her choice. 5,000 colonists slept in their cryopods, unaware that their 50-year journey had stretched into 15 millennia. "Life signs are stable in all pods," reported the ship's eye, its systems carefully updated by the continuance to handle long-term maintenance. However, revival must be handled carefully. "Their bodies are significantly more fragile than yours was, lacking the enhancements you received during stasis." Sarah nodded, studying the sleeping faces through the frosted pods. Unlike the Helios' colonists, these people hadn't been taken by the continuance during their sleep. They were pure baseline humans, untouched by even the subtle modifications she had received. "Wake the command crew first," she ordered. 5 people, enough to help us prepare for the others, but not so many that we can't manage if there are complications." As the revival process began, Sarah felt the quantum architecture of the continuance shifting around the ship, their vast intelligence focused on recording every detail of natural human consciousness emerging from stasis. They were particularly interested in the moments of transition, when sleeping minds rekindled themselves into full awareness. The first to wake was Dr. James Kumar, the Hyperion's chief medical officer. Sarah watched through the pod's sensors as his consciousness reasserted itself, neural patterns flowing back into familiar configurations. To her enhanced perception, it looked like watching a galaxy spiral into existence from scattered stars. "Where?" James managed to croak as his pod opened, squinting against lights that seemed too bright to his newly awakened eyes. "You're safe," Sarah assured him, helping him sit up. "But there's a lot we need to discuss. The journey didn't go quite as planned." Over the next several hours, as the other 4 command crew members were revived, Sarah explained their situation. She told them about the Helios, about humanity's transformation, about the continuance. She showed them proof through her enhanced abilities and the quantum architecture visible through the ship's upgraded sensors. Their reactions ranged from fascination to horror. Captain Elena Martinez spent an hour staring at visualizations of post-human civilization, tears streaming down her face. "All those people," she whispered. "Everyone we left behind. Not gone," Sarah corrected gently. "Changed. And now you have the same choice they did. You and all your colonists." But as discussions continued, it became clear that this group, at least, had no interest in transformation. They had left Earth specifically to preserve traditional human life, to start fresh on a new world. The idea of abandoning biological existence for a post-human state was anathema to everything they believed in. "Then help us understand why," the continuance suggested through Sarah. "Let us study how you build your colony, how human consciousness develops in a new environment. Your journey may have lasted longer than intended, but your mission can still succeed and provide crucial data for solving the entropy problem." A plan began to form. The Hyperion's original destination was no longer suitable. The star had aged significantly over 15,000 years, but the continuance knew of a perfect alternative. A pristine world, hidden from the galaxy's other post-biological civilizations, where humanity could begin again. "We'll help you establish your colony," Sarah explained to the command crew. "Provide subtle enhancements to your technology to handle environmental challenges, shield you from detection by other civilizations. but the core development of your society will be your own. And in exchange, you study us, Captain Martinez said. It wasn't a question. We study consciousness, Sarah corrected. How it emerges, how it develops, how it might be preserved without the entropy that threatens the continuance. Your colony won't just be preserving human life. It will be helping to ensure that humanity in all its forms can survive. The command crew debated among themselves, but in the end, the decision was unanimous. They would accept the continuance's offer, becoming partners in the great experiment to solve the entropy of consciousness. More than that, they would become guardians of human memory, preserving ways of life and thinking that might otherwise be lost to time. Over the next weeks, as the remaining colonists were gradually awakened and briefed, Sarah observed humanity's remarkable adaptability in action. These people had gone to sleep expecting to build a new life on a distant world. Now they were part of a grand experiment in consciousness itself, willing partners in humanity's next evolution, even as they chose to remain in their original form. But as Sarah watched the colony begin to take shape, she detected something troubling in the quantum field surrounding their new home. The continuance had chosen this world for its isolation, but they weren't the only ones who had noticed its potential. Other post-biological civilizations were taking an interest in this pocket of preserved humanity. The entropy of consciousness was not a unique problem, and some of these ancient beings had very different ideas about how it might be solved. Sarah realized that her role was about to expand from interpreter and observer to something else entirely: protector. The next phase of human evolution might depend not just on understanding consciousness, but on defending humanity's right to choose its own path. And Sarah Chen, straddling the line between human and post-human, would need to find ways to guard against threats that could come from any level of reality. The attack came 3 years after the Hyperion colony's founding. Sarah detected it first through her enhanced senses, a ripple in quantum space that shouldn't have existed. The continuance recognized it moments later. Another post-biological civilization had found them, one that saw human consciousness as a resource to be harvested rather than a mystery to be understood. They call themselves the Cascade. The continuance explained as their defenses mobilized. They believe the entropy of consciousness can be overcome by absorbing other minds, creating a constant flow of new patterns to replace those lost to decay. Sarah watched through multiple layers of reality as the Cascade's vessels emerged from quantum space. They were beautiful in their way, fractal patterns of crystallized thought that put even the continuance's architecture to shame. But their beauty masked a horrific purpose. They were consciousness hunters, harvesters of minds. The colony, Sarah said urgently. We have to protect them. We are, the continuance assured her. But we need you to do something more important. The Cascade's arrival isn't a coincidence. They found a way to detect quantum signature of consciousness itself. As long as minds exist, they'll be drawn to them. We need a permanent solution. Through her connection to the quantum architecture, Sarah accessed the continuance's latest research. They had been studying the Hyperion colonists intensively, particularly the children born since landing. Something about their neural patterns was different, not better or worse than their parents, but more adaptable. Natural selection is already at work, she realized. Even without technological intervention, human consciousness is evolving to handle the quantum reality it's now part of. The Cascade ships engaged the continuance's defenses, their battle playing out across multiple dimensions. But Sarah's attention was focused on the data. The colonists' children were developing natural quantum entanglement in their neural structures, microscopic bridges between classical and quantum states of consciousness. They're becoming quantum classical hybrids, she explained to the continuance. Not post-biological like you, not purely classical like their parents, but something in between. A new form of consciousness that might not be subject to the same entropy. The battle above intensified. The Cascade was powerful, but the continuance had something they lacked. A connection to their human origins that made their patterns less predictable, more creative. Still, it was clear that this wouldn't be the last such attack. As long as consciousness existed in forms that could be harvested, predators would evolve to harvest it. Sarah made her decision. We need to accelerate this natural evolution, she told the continuance. Not force it like the first transformation, but guide it. Create conditions where human consciousness can adapt on its own terms. The plan came together quickly. The continuance would create a network of quantum classical interfaces around the colony, subtle influences that would encourage natural neural adaptation without forcing change. Sarah, with her unique perspective as both observer and participant, would guide the process. It won't be fast, she warned. We're talking about evolutionary timescales. Fast led us to entropy. The continuance responded. Slow growth might be the key to stable consciousness. As the cascade finally retreated, their harvesters damaged by defenses they hadn't expected, Sarah looked down at the colony through layers of reality. The colonists were unaware of the battle that had just taken place, protected by technology they couldn't perceive. But their children were different. Some were already looking up at the sky with eyes that could almost see the quantum realm. Decades passed. Sarah watched generations of humans born and raised in this quantum-enhanced environment. Each generation showed more natural ability to perceive and interact with the quantum realm, but crucially, they remained human. The changes were additions to human consciousness, not replacements for it. The cascade attacked twice more over the centuries, but each time they found their target harder to consume. Human consciousness was becoming something new, something that couldn't be easily harvested or copied. It was evolving defenses at the most fundamental level. A century after the first attack, Sarah met with a group of young colonists who had developed full quantum perception naturally. They could see the continuance's architecture, understand its patterns, even communicate with post-human minds directly, all while maintaining their biological existence. We're not solving the entropy problem, she realized during this meeting. We're transcending it. Classical consciousness anchors quantum states, while quantum effects expand classical consciousness. Each supports the other in a sustainable cycle. The continuance began to adapt this discovery to their own existence, finding ways to reestablish connections to classical states of consciousness. The entropy they had feared began to slow, then stop, as their quantum patterns found new stability through controlled interaction with classical reality. 5 centuries after the Hyperion's awakening, Sarah stood in a chamber that existed simultaneously in normal space and the quantum realm. Around her, humans of various forms mingled freely: baseline humans, natural quantum classical hybrids, and post-human minds housed in interfaces that let them experience classical existence again. They had found not just a solution to entropy, but a way to unite humanity's various branches, not through forced evolution or transformation, but through natural adaptation and choice. Each form of human consciousness had its strengths, its unique perspective, its contribution to the greater whole. Sarah Chen, who had awakened 15,000 years late to witness humanity's transformation, had instead helped guide its integration. The future would hold new challenges, new forms of consciousness, new choices to make. But humanity, in all its forms, would face them together. Adapted, united, but fundamentally unchanged in its endless capacity to grow and learn. As she watched a young hybrid child explaining classical art to a fascinated post-human observer, Sarah smiled. They had preserved more than just consciousness. They had preserved humanity's greatest legacy: the ability to change without losing itself, to advance without forgetting its roots, to face the future while honoring its past. The entropy of consciousness, it turned out, could only be overcome by embracing both change and continuity, both evolution and preservation. It was a lesson humanity had been teaching itself since its earliest days, now finally understood at the deepest level of reality itself.